Season 2, Episode 9, Don't Stop Me Now, Getting into the Flow.
Hello and welcome to How to Survive Until You're Published, because if you're drowning in words, then so are we, and you might as well not do it alone.
So today we are going to be talking about flow, but before we get into that, we are actually recording in a new location on our writing retreat. There's very loud flies, so I'm sorry if we can't edit him out.
Yeah, you'll probably hear him in the background. We might ask him a few questions.
All right, so getting into it.
Yes.
And before we really get into it, what is flow?
Okay, so I think this is like the funniest thing to talk about because I remember we went to a class at a conference a few years ago, and like talking about flow felt like this
L2UE, right?
Yeah. Felt like this like mysterious, essential thing that you have to get into some karma about. And I think to an extent that's true, but it's just like the moment when you can just write and you just keep going and you go and you go and everything's coming and you get it, it's
just when you're like really productive, everything's in alignment, no blocks. Yeah,
the stars all come together, the moon, the sun,
everything,
the world aligns.
But in all actuality, how do you get into flow?
So for me it's like after, I guess it really depends. If I have like a really good vibe about a scene, it's easier. But like recently, as I've been writing, it's after I can outline really well. After I've been able to really figure out what I want to do, I can just get in there and just go. And one of the other things I do, which I actually don't do it very often, is try and put music on. I get really distracted with music usually. But if I can find songs that are just kind of like vibing with the scene that I'm writing, I turn the volume way down, but I can kind of let that get into my head and help me kind of feel what I'm writing better so that I get into that mindset. So, yeah.
Because I can get into flow and that mindset without music, but I actually write with lyric music, which might drive some people nuts. But it's like, if it does and everything I'm writing with. But for me, like the ideal way, and this does not always get to happen just because life and where I have to write. But if I can like sit at my desk that I have like designated for writing, I have a candle that I like to write with it too, which again, it sounds like all this mystical thing, but I just like candles in general too. And I have like 3 different beverages. This is so stupid. Lined up in like my noise canceling earbuds with my themed playlist.
Yes.
That helps me get into flow. But that doesn't always happen just, because of life. You don't always get like undivided writing attention. But if I have time or like long stretches of time where I know I'm going to be uninterrupted, that's like amazing for it. But typically I find I am writing in short sprints instead.
Yeah.
So how do you get into the flow for short stretches of time if you don't have like necessarily, well, you might have an outline, but if you don't have like all this time to think about what you're writing and kind of get into the mood beforehand?
So I think a good tool that I've used is like thinking about the scene over the course of like the day or the time. And I mean, this just happens. We're writers. We think about what we're writing a lot of the time. And so I don't do short stretches of time, at least recently, unless it's plotting or outlining, because I can do that with short stretches. But if I'm doing a specific writing sprint where I put a timer on for 20 minutes, that works really well. But I have to have a goal though. I have to know kind of what I'm going for and like what I want to accomplish. Because if I don't have that, then I'm not exactly sure where I'm gonna go. At least this has all been recently. In the past, it's been a little different.
Yeah, of course, everything changes.
Yeah, things change.
I'd also say like outlining a lot. So if I've had a chance to outline before, just having designated scenes or like chapters that I'm working on that I need to get done that day. So again, it's like daydreaming about what you're writing, just like constantly thinking about it before I get to write. Just kind of like what you said, Amy, and just going into like those 15-minute sprints if I have them. That way I can like jot it out, and also knowing that I can fix my bad writing later in editing. And if I only have like a short time to edit, just knowing, okay, I'm gonna go through and edit for like adverbs or cleaning up prose or this developmental thing, and just having a goal in mind for my short stretches of time helps me get into flow too.
Yeah, I think one other thing I just thought of that really helps me is I pray a lot. So prayer, or just like a moment of meditation beforehand, helps a lot. Just to kind of like calm my mind down and get myself into that zone, I guess. And I think also too, like, it's okay if you're not in the zone when you sit down.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sometimes like you have to kind of push yourself to get going, you know, kind of like you're riding a bike. You have to kind of like kick off a little bit before you can get in there. So if you're like, you know, the stars haven't aligned when you sit down at your desk, just try putting some words down and just see kind of how things go, and push yourself a little bit and see if you can get in there.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I'm kind of returning it back to like, if you only have short sprints throughout the day, maybe like planning those bigger scenes and stuff for when you have longer times. But also just finding stuff to do that's like writing a story adjacent, if you only have shorter time frames. We did also ask some of our listeners and just like put an ask out on social media for how different authors and writers got into flow. And I wanted to go through them. We'll kind of discuss what we like, or if it's something we've done, or if it's something we want to try. Okay, so we had Haley Bono write that reading good books helps her get into flow. There's something about reading what someone else wrote that gets that part of her brain going. I kind of like that. It would work for maybe like longer stretches, or like helping me get in the mindset. I just like, in this season of my life, I don't have a lot of time to read and then write. I have to pick one, I feel like. But I think that's great if that works for you.
Yeah, actually, that does actually work for me. Because like, for me, it's kind of just getting my creative mind moving. And if sitting down and staring at a blank page doesn't do it for me, reading a book kind of gets those gears going.
Yeah, that's fair.
And when I'm reading, I usually am like, oh, I could do this I could do that in my book. I could do that in mine.
Yeah, that
or
makes
like,
sense.
I kind of think about the concepts or the ideas or whatever what I'm reading, and so it helps. I kind of tie it into what I'm writing, and that helps.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
I think like an alternative to that, because I think that's great, and I have definitely found inspiration from other books and other writing, just like having some sort of visual stimulation to help, so you're not just staring at like a blinking screen or page if you write in a physical notebook. I have my whiteboard that just has all my post-it notes and a map and little character profiles and things like that I kind of like to look at, just to kind of help guide me and give me
I like that
mindset. Okay, one of our other listeners said that they have specific playlists for each story, one for daydreaming beforehand, one to write to that has like no vocals or vibes. They like different like candles, or have the same like coffee, or go to a coffee shop or library with headphones, kind of like a more ritualistic setup, kind of like we described a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I could also see how like getting out of the house would help. You've done this.
Oh, yeah.
You go to the library with headphones to write.
Yeah, I go to the library. I kind of write in a lot of locations. I have this very specific place on my floor that I get really good revelation from. Ironically, I write in my bed, I write at my desk, I write at the library, I go to a different library, I'll sit on my couch downstairs. That helps me. It's my ADHD. Like my ADHD, that's like, it helps that movement, that change helps me to stay focused a little better.
Yeah, I mean, we did an episode about this with Allison Jervis last season, about overcoming writer's block, and one of the suggestions is like to get up and move around to different spots. And I know a lot of people's like time for writing and just life doesn't always allow them to sit in one location. So this is, I think, just getting into the mindset that you can write anywhere, and sometimes just making the most of that time could help too. Yeah. So it's not like a block outs. The third one that we had was listening to Spotify or Pandora every time they write to set the mood. So like music is a big one for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to like put a plug into just with one that's struggled using music while writing. I feel like scenes that I'm really passionate about writing, the music is like a game changer. Mm-hmm. If I can find the right song that I'm feeling it like puts me right there with the characters. It's huge.
I think like picking music that has the right mood or vibes though is really important, because I've totally like set out with like a specific scene and goal in mind and had the vibes are just off with the scene. I'm like, oh, I was supposed to be writing like this really, I don't know, like tense moment, but it turns into more of like a romance scene, or, you know, I don't know, where it's like, I don't know, vibes just need to be there to match the scene.
Yeah, just pick your playlist carefully.
Yes, but I think it's definitely very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one other thought that I was thinking about too, I mean, and this is like just in general with writing, but I think being like in the mindset of your character is like huge. And being able to really see the world through their eyes and kind of putting your mind in their head and viewing the world around them, that has really helped me as I've like tried to write through scenes. And like being able to just understand your character on that deep level has like really helped me to take my writing from surface level to like a far deeper level, because I mean the whole point of writing is connecting with your characters and like pulling those themes forward, and if you can't do that, then it's just hard. You're just hitting a brick wall.
Yeah, so I think that actually really helps. I've noticed too, like kind of going along with that, a lot of times if I can't get into flow, even if I just have a short time, it's usually because there's something like that blocking me, where it's like I don't understand the world and the scene through my character's perspective, or there is like a gaping plot hole connected to like, well, one, just the plot, or like the character themselves. And so sometimes maybe if you can't get into a flow, taking a step back and maybe looking at, oh, do I understand my characters well enough? Is there a plot hole that I'm missing? Something like that might help.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. For me, what I do is I ask obvious questions. I ask the questions I'm asking myself that I can't answer, and then I try to answer them. I like my are half the scene, half the chapter, and the other half just brainstorm, because sometimes you have to really like talk it out with yourself, you know, before you can really get it.
It's true. And I will say that like write every thought down that comes to you in brainstorming. I've been really particular about doing this. I have a notebook for my story that I'll write every thought down in, and I also have a notes app in my phone, just because a lot of those things that I tell myself I'll remember, I forget, even if it's like during a writing session. But I think that's really key and important too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, too, sometimes like blocks might come. I know this was about getting into flow, but I feel like you can't really talk about flow without the blocks.
That's true.
Yeah. It might like come from life stressors. So also like if there's something stressing you out in life, maybe like hurrying and like doing that task might help.
Yeah. Yeah. Just making sure your brain is clear and like ready for you to be creative, because like forcing your creative mind doesn't work very well. You have to kind of be ready for it, and the rest of your life, you know, I mean, and there's always going to be stressful
there
things.
Are, so you just still have to make time for it.
Yeah, but like understanding what, like the things that are on the top of your mind, make sure they're okay before you sit down.
Yeah. So just kind of before we end our episode with a challenge, I did look up some additional tips online, kind of researching what people have said helps them get into flow or like create a flow, and I thought we could kind of like blind react to them. say like what we do or don't like about them, how it could help. And we can go from there. Maybe they'll give you tips. Maybe you could even like message us on social media with some of your tips about flow. We'd love to hear them. But I did have to laugh at one that I found when I was looking up like how to get into creative flow, and it was just achieve flow. I was like, that's great. That's like what we're trying to do, but how do you do that?
How do you do that?
So the first one I found was remove distractions.
That's like 100% the definition of me.
Yeah.
Like,
my phone really gets in the way sometimes, removing that distraction.
Yeah. Although this is an interesting thought. I will say, if I am blocked and I can't think, I'll scroll through Instagram for like 5 minutes, then I'll put it down and my brain will be back.
I think that's great if you can. I think part of that is knowing yourself, because if I started scrolling, I don't know if I would like put the timer down at 5 minutes. That's just my brain.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it can be a tool or not.
What works for one person doesn't always work for another.
Yeah. So it's a good thought. The next one, goals and set out to write some mind. Yeah, we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, we did talk about that. I like that.
Yeah, that one's super helpful.
Stay hydrated is the next one.
So bad.
There's so many times where I'm like, I just can't get this right. And then I realize it's because I haven't had water, or I haven't eaten recently, or just something stupid like taking care of myself. And so it's not allowing me to get into that creative flow.
Also, just snacks. Sometimes snacks are good.
It's true.
Sometimes I can't think. I want a goldfish. I'm going to eat it. I don't know.
Yeah, it helps.
And then exercise.
Yes.
You're a better example of this than I am.
No, I don't know. I just can't think clearly unless I haven't moved my body in a certain amount of time. It actually was so bad in high school. If I hadn't exercised in however amount of time, my mom would be like, you need to go for a run, because she could tell that it was blocking me in other ways, where I'm like, I'd be angrier, I'd get frustrated more easily. And I think too, there's I'm a weirdo and I don't always exercise with music on. Granted, I don't run as much as I used to, but I like to bike or lift weights or whatever. But just as my body's moving, it's again thinking about those things. And there's something about being active while still thinking about my story that helps me really start to think and open up.
Yeah, it's
new ideas.
If your body's already moving, you can get your mind moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then just start writing. Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, we did talk about that one.
That's a good one.
I feel like the next one too kind of ties into exercising and everything else we talked about. Nature break. It's a change in location. There's something about getting outside that also helps.
And the fresh air. Air is a big thing. Everyone, we need to breathe it. Yeah, getting out in nature among the trees. I've seen that be huge. And also, there's something about noticing the world around you, you visualize things better, and your setting gets more drawn in. At least that's how it works for me.
I think that's true. Writing is kind of an observation of the world through a different lens, right? So
looking at the world. Establishing rituals. Yeah.
We did talk about that. It's kind of like the Pavlov's dog experiment, just with humans. It's fine.
If I have my 3 beverages.
Yeah. Reading your writing aloud and just going back and reading what you've already written can help you.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get too stuck in the editing loop. But I think it can help kind of orient yourself and get in the mindset of your characters if done right.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that quite a bit, and it helps. I'll go back maybe to the thought or idea before that I wrote the previous day, and I'll just kind of read through it. I'll kind of see if my mind is still with that idea and that concept, and then once I get done with that, then I just keep writing. So that helps me. And then reading.
Yeah, we did talk about this one. We kind of talked about the next couple that were on there, reading, taking care of yourself. Stop multitasking. Yeah. I mean, to some extent, it might work for some people, it might work for others.
Yeah. Just depends on how you work. And the thing is you just got to kind of test some things out and see what helps.
I do kind of like the not multitasking and just having a block of time for a specific thing, though.
Yeah, that's huge.
Okay, any other last thoughts on Flow Amy before we issue our challenge?
I think, yeah, don't put a whole ton of pressure on yourself to get into flow. It's okay if you don't, but, well, it's okay if you do, but if you don't, like, that's okay too. Just kind of keep trying.
So our challenge for you would be to like look for key things that help you get into a creative mindset and try to implement those into your life.
Yeah, and test some new strategies out.
Yep. But anyways, thanks for listening. You can always find us on our Instagram, A Writer Survival Guide, on our YouTube channel, How to Survive Until You're Published, or our website, also A Writer Survival Guide. We'd love to hear your thoughts and what works for you.
Yeah, reach out to us. Have a good week.